Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining and welcome to the session. I'm Madhuri and I'm a product marketer at EXIN. And today I'll be the moderator for this session. But before we begin, I'd like to quickly introduce you to our upcoming Artificial Intelligence Compliance Professional Certification. So this is what our program, AI program, looks like. In the essentials level, you'll see EXIN BCS AI Essential Certification. Then in the foundation level, we have the EXIN AI Foundation Level Certification, along with Gen AI, Generative AI Award, and Machine Learning Award. Both of these are also foundation level examinations. And we have the EXIN AI Compliance Professional, which is coming up. It's soon to be launched. It's going to launch on the 13th of June. And in this advanced level AI certification, it's basically the first of its kind certification to combine legal compliance, ethical AI development, and practical implementation all in one structured learning path. So it's designed to provide professionals with the skills needed to navigate complex AI regulations and ethical considerations and governance issues, especially in the context of the EU AI Act. Moving on, who is this ideal for? This is basically ideal for compliance professionals, legal and risk advisors, AI project leads, and consultants and trainers like you who want to lead responsible AI adoption. I'm having some trouble with my slides. They're just now moving. So this is what the exam format looks like. It's going to be a 40-question examination. It's typically, the exam duration is 90 minutes and the pass mark is 65%, which is fairly standard for EXIN advanced level certifications. And in this 2-day session, we'll be covering the core modules and learning outcomes of the AI Compliance Professional Certification. And we'll also be training you on how to prepare and deliver this course effectively. So you'll see the practical training materials in action and have the opportunity to ask questions throughout the session. You can post your queries in the questions section and we'll address them at the end of the session. Now, to guide you through the heart of the AI compliance professional content, I'm very pleased to introduce you to our lead trainer, Deepinder Singh Chhabra. Deepinder leads Cyber GRC Consulting at Verizon Business Group. He's a seasoned expert in cybersecurity, governance, and regulatory compliance. Throughout his career, he has helped organizations tackle cybersecurity challenges, navigate complex regulatory landscapes, and drive secure adoption of technologies like AI and cloud. I'm very, very grateful to have you here, Deepinder. With that, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madhuri. Let me share my screen. Please be with me while I try to get everything set up. Right. Madhuri, just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Is it the screen? I cannot see my screen. Is this a screen with without notes, right?
Yes, without notes.
I
Yes.
just want to, because it just disappeared. I just have a bar now.
Yes.
All right.
Good. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So good day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this webinar. Before I start this session, I would like to clarify that the views and the opinions expressed in this presentation are EXIN's and my own, and they do not reflect the views, positions, and opinions of my employer, Verizon, or any other organization I'm associated with, or any third parties. So with that out of the way, let me start with a simple question. Why do we need an AI Act? And to be honest, AI is no longer experimental. It is making decisions in hiring, lending, healthcare, even policing. That kind of influence without clear rules is risky. And we have seen that. You know, there is bias in algorithms, opaque decision making, surveillance overreach. The power of AI is real, and so are its adverse impacts or harms. And that's why the European Union acted, and in 2021 they proposed the EU AI Act. And in 2024, finally it became law. It is the world's first comprehensive AI regulation designed to make AI human-centric, lawful, and trustworthy. This act does not kill innovation. I've heard several times, oh, EU AI Act is going to kill the innovation. No, it doesn't kill it. It guides it. It helps classify AI systems by risk and set strict rules where needed. And most of us are familiar with the GDPR or EU GDPR. And just like EU GDPR, what EU GDPR did for data privacy, the EU AI sets actually a global benchmark for responsible AI. So as we go through today's session, remember, this is not just about legal checkbox exercise. If you want to become AI compliance professional, you need to understand that it is about building AI technology that we can trust. So with that background and context, let's get started. And I think this is where the act starts to get specific. Who does it apply to? What types of AI are covered? And most importantly, what is it trying to achieve? So let's break it down. Let's look at the purpose and scope. As I mentioned earlier, the EU AI Act is a comprehensive act, right? And it's a landmark regulation designed to shape how AI is developed and used across Europe. It marks a decisive step, not just for innovation, but for trust. The goal is to strike a delicate balance between encouraging EU AI progress and protecting public interest, security, and fundamental rights. And one of its main objectives is to ensure smooth functioning of internal market. So how does it plan to achieve it? By creating uniform rules for how AI systems are developed, sold, and used throughout the EU. And this avoids fragmentation. No more different rules followed by different countries in EU. Instead, a harmonized framework that promotes consistency and cross-border compliance. But the Act goes beyond bringing consistency to the rules. It places people at the center. A key pillar is promotion of human-centered, trustworthy AI. The Act ensures or try to ensure that development and use of AI technologies must be implemented in EU, reflect the fundamental values of the EU, such as privacy, safety, health, dignity, democracy, and the rule of law. This is to ensure that the fundamental values and the rights upheld in EU are respected while we implementing AI systems within Europe. Now that we have looked at the why and what of the AI Act, let's talk about who does it apply to. The scope of EU AI Act is intentionally broad. It does not just apply to companies based in EU. If you are developing, distributing, or even using an AI system in the EU market, this law applies to you. So if we look at the in scope, what is in scope? So providers who place AI models with general purpose AI on the market, providers and deployers of AI systems, regardless of where they are based, whether they are based in EU or third country, provider systems are used in EU, or the result of the AI system is being consumed in EU. So that also one thing to consider. And then you have product manufacturers who place AI system on the market or put them in operation together with their own product under their own name or trademark. And authorized representative providers who are not established in EU. So if, for example, if there is a provider of AI system who is based in Japan or India or Poland, who are not established in EU, they have to appoint authorized representatives, and they will be in scope. And there are responsibilities of authorized representatives clearly defined in EU AI Act. And but also the scope is, in the scope are real world testing of AI systems that are otherwise used for research, testing, development activities because they are interact with natural persons. And so that is in scope. So what is not in scope? So AI systems that are only used for personal non-commercial activities of individuals, like we use ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT personally, so that is not in scope. But if you start using ChatGPT for professional use or commercial use, then it will come into scope. So that's clear distinction we have to be aware of. And then we have AI systems used in areas not covered by EU, such as military purpose or for national security. And AI systems for sole purpose of research and development, they are not in scope. And then you have AI systems that are used by authorities in third countries and international organizations, provided that appropriate safeguard exists regarding the protection of individuals. So these are some of the AI systems that are in scope and not in scope. And you will find the scope defined in Article 2 of the EU AI Act. Now, I should mention it that I'm regularly approached and asked, what is AI system? And there's confusion about it, but it is clearly defined in recital 1 under Article 3, which is definitions of the EU AI Act. So don't believe what anybody says or blog says, just refer to recital 1 under Article 3 if you want to have a definitive and authoritative answer of what AI system is. Now, to ensure the accountability, the AI Act clearly defines who is responsible for what. And this slide summarizes the different roles defined in EU AI Act. And these are provider and provider, the provider, deployer, authorized representative, importer, distributors, and product manufacturer. So let's look at each briefly. Provider is a developer or client of GPAI system who markets or operates it under their name or trademark for payment or free of charge. So it could be, as I said, it could be even offered free or, chargeable, but still that would be, that will be considered as provider if they are offering that to public within the EU. Deployer is a user of an AI system in their own responsibility, except for personal or non-professional use. So if you are using ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot for personal use, you're not classified as deployer. But if you are using in commercial setting, then you will be treated as deployer. Then you have authorized representatives, person appointed in writing by a provider who is based in EU and who assumes the obligation of the provider with regards to compliance with AI regulations. So it's a person appointed in writing by provider and authorized representative should be based in EU. Provider may not be in this case. And then you have importer, someone, a legal entity or individual places an AI system on the market in the EU under the name or trademark of a person established outside the EU. And distributor, any person in the supply chain who makes an AI system available in the EU market with the exception of supplier or importer. And then you have product manufacturer. But please note that the rules are captured in the slide are based on definitions in the Article 3 of the EU AI Act. So now we know the we know the different rules defined in EU AI Act. Let's look at the EU AI Act in depth, starting with the key provisions. And one thing I would like to say is that at the heart of the EU AI Act is a risk-based approach. Not all the AI systems are treated same, and that is intentional. Every AI system must be classified into one of 4 categories that are mentioned on this slide. And I've changed the order the way I will cover them. I will start from bottom. And that's how I think how the order should be. First is unacceptable risk that are, and that's clearly defined and enshrined in Article 5 of the EU AI Act. And these are, when I say these, I mean these AI systems are deemed extremely harmful and banned outright. And examples are, social scoring system, real-time biometric surveillance, public spaces or manipulative AI that may use subliminal techniques or may target the vulnerable groups. And they are banned outright because they are seen as fundamentally at odds with EU values. And second is high risk AI system. That's second category, second level. And again, it's defined and enshrined in Article 6 and Annex 3 of the EU AI Act. These systems are allowed to operate within EU, but under strict conditions and prerequisites. Think of AI system being used in education, employment, law enforcement, and healthcare. They can actually adversely impact the opportunities and lead to discrimination. And that's why they are subjected to additional tough requirements like data governance, transparency, human oversight, and we touch upon these later on. And third level is limited risk. These systems might include chatbots or AI that interacts with the user. And there is a requirement for these systems to be transparent so that users know that they are dealing with machines and not humans. And finally, we have the minimal risk category. It's the broadest category. Most of AI systems that don't fall into any other category will fall here. And this includes ChatGPT for personal use, spam filters, recommendation engines, AI picture generator. So and these kind of minimal risk system, they don't face any special rules under the EU AI Act. If we were to look at the slide and the message we are getting from EU AI Act, it is clear. The greater the impact on people's rights or safety, the greater the regulatory burden. So EU AI Act take a risk-based approach. And this approach and classification that is defined or enshrined in the EU AI Act sets the tone for everything else, from obligations to penalties to how you build and deploy your system. And if you are a provider, risk classification is your first job, and it must be done before going to the market. So let's take a pause now. And Madhuri, I think you have a poll for us.
Yes, I think it's time for a poll. Let me just quickly launch it. All right. So the poll is fairly simple. Which category of AI risk do you think will be the hardest for organizations to classify correctly under the EU AI Act? And I already see people voting in. I will give it a minute so people can just cast in their votes, and then we'll share the results so everybody can see them. All right, 5 seconds more, and I think I'm going to shut the poll. Okay, let me share the results. Oh, it's interesting. High risk has stood out with 42%. Deep, do you have anything to say on the results?
Yeah, actually, I feel that's where the most of the obligations are. Unacceptable risk, actually, they are banned, so you cannot even use it. So
It's really easy to, yeah.
yeah, so it is very black and white there. But for high risk systems, so EU AI Act, which a lot of obligations, and I think that will be very challenging and hardest for organization to classify. But Annex 3 actually provides very good guidance, so that will come handy. But I think unacceptable risk sometimes can be challenging, but then you should approach the competent authorities because there can be borderline cases. So you can actually reach out to supervisory authority within your nation state where you are based. So that could be a good start.
Perfect. Over to you again.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for putting this interesting poll together. Credit goes to Madhuri. It's not, I didn't come up with the poll, but yeah, very good poll. Thank you. So continuing with the theme, we looked at different kind of risks, and it is likely that, as I mentioned, the EU AI Act has certainly greater obligations, um, list of activities that or requirements for high risk systems. So let's look at them in detail, right, from each role point of view, right? So if we look at if you're a provider, you have to ensure that product and EU AI system that you have developed complies with the EU AI Act, right? You should prepare and maintain the system's technical documentation, and there is an annex in EU AI Act which outlines what kind of technical documentation should be maintained. You should maintain quality and risk management systems. Again, you have to take the risk-based approach, make sure the quality of the EU AI systems and the data being used. And you should have a good data governance system in place. There's an obligation for provider to register the high-risk AI system in the EU database. And we should also perform the conformity assessment and maintain the EU declaration of conformity. You may have to approach the conformity assessment bodies for independent assessment and get the CE marking before placing it in the market. And you should also, as a provider, obliged to take necessary corrective actions if incident is reporting or concern is raised about the efficacy of the EU AI system. And you are also obliged to provide information whenever required to the notifying authority and market surveillance authority as well, if required. But more than that, to inform the users as well. And then you have deployers, which are basically users of AI system. They should use the AI system according to the provider's instructions. And that's very important. And key requirement for deployer is to ensure that they assign human oversight where required and continue to monitor AI system performance. Because with the if we look at the machine learning and AI, we've seen the model drift taking place over a period of time, and that can happen. So you need to continue to monitor AI system performance, not for efficiency or effectiveness, but also false positives and false negatives, especially if they affect the fundamental rights of the individuals, which is likely in the case of high risk AI system. And deployers should maintain records and report issues. So there's reporting obligations we will cover later on. They are also enshrined in the EU AI Act. And deployers should also inform the affected individuals if they find that there's inaccuracy in the output of the EU AI system, certainly in a high risk setting. And then you have importers, right? Before importer, authorized representative, which represent non-EU providers, they should ensure the compliance of the EU AI system that has been placed in the market and cooperate with the authorities, like notifying authorities or market surveillance authorities, if required, on the behalf of the providers that are based in country outside EU. And then we have importers that ensure AI system and provider meet the EU regulations before being placed on the market. So they are also responsible because they are importing. They are responsible for verifying documentation and conformity assessments of the high-risk systems. They should provide contact details in the system and to authorities. So obviously that will go into EU database for high-risk system, and you have to also provide the contact details. And then distributors verify a system and provider meet the EU regulations before placing in the market, ensure that AI system may remain compliant when making them available in the market, and cooperate with the authorities upon request, quite similar to importers. And we already covered the authorized representatives. And product manufacturer, if you look at, is just like deployer. It's quite similar to deployer. Because it's using AI system created a provider included in their system or product and taking it to the market. So one thing is that we have this EU AI Act, which has certainly risk-based approach, but for enforcement and supervision, it is important that there is a governance and oversight system is developed, governance system is developed and deployed at EU level. And this slide beautifully captures the different stakeholders. At the highest level, you have AI office, actually EU AI board is at the center of it, which is supported by AI office, EU, report to EU Commission. And then you have scientific panel that actually works with reports to AI office, right? And we have advisory forum. It kind of has stakeholder representation from industry, academia, and civil society. And if you look at the European Artificial Intelligence Board, is composed of representatives from each member state, advisors on AI policy, best practices, and enforcement. And AI Office, if we just touch upon it again, develops the EU-level AI expertise and capabilities. It also oversees compliance for general purpose AI models and supports market surveillance and enforcement coordination wherever required. Now, going to the next level, we are actually talking about national level. So one, top level layer is at the EU level, then you have national level and operational level. So if we move to national level, which is at member states level, you have market surveillance authorities. They ensure compliance and investigate violations of AI regulations. And then we have notifying authorities. They approve and monitor conformity assessment bodies. And at national level, member states are responsible for implementing and enforcing AI regulation at the country level and supervise AI system deployed in the national markets. And at the operational level, we have conformity assessment bodies. They are also defined as notified bodies within EU AI Act. And these are kind of independent bodies that verify compliance of high-risk AI systems. And we know, I mentioned earlier that EU database for a high-risk AI system, that is kind of central repository or registry for high-risk AI systems to ensure transparency and accountability. So this, again, slides provides a very good overview of governance structure and governance and supervision and enforcement structure, I would say, at EU level, national level, and operational level. So let's now continue with the risk and regulations. And to be honest, it's I was mentioning to Madhuri, I would rather change the structure of the slide and flow the slide, but that's just me. This is a obviously course structured by EXIN, so I will follow that. But it's not. First of all, I would like to congratulate and take this opportunity to congratulate EXIN for developing such a brilliant course. I was talking to Madhuri, and I think there are only 2 people who participated so far in pilot exam, and it's just me and one other person who has passed the AICP exam. So I will encourage you all to take the exam. But this slide is very, very good. It captures all the key elements and bring forth a knowledge base that can help us as AI compliance professional to achieve the compliance with AI EU AI Act. It helps us as professionals to go out and help the organization meet the EU AI regulation obligations. So one thing I have been told several times, there's a common misconception, and people say, "Oh, EU AI Act is going to stifle the innovation." I don't think so. I think it's provide a very good balance between innovation and regulatory oversight. And if you look at what the innovation is, it's about creation of it's kind of innovation is coming up with the new things, right? New application of AI Act that we as a human race can benefit. But also, if you look at from regulatory point of view, we want to make sure, and within the EU AI Act domain, body of knowledge, we want to make sure that we help promote the human-centric AI wherever possible. Because ultimately, humans are affected by use of AI, directly or indirectly. And from EU AI Act point of view, we want to make sure that we have a unified European AI market and support, provide support for SMEs and startups. And that is also enshrined in EU AI Act with the provision of making sure that there is a sandbox at each national level, within each national boundary. There is a sandbox to facilitate the innovation and provide support to SMEs and startups. And I think it's a great initiative. People kind of underestimate the level of effort and investment required with the EU by national state to facilitate this regulatory sandbox for safe testing, and provide support to SMEs. But main objective is to make things sure, and ban unacceptable AI practices. And they are, as I said, strict rule for high risk AI system, and so that we can protect the fundamental rights and privacy. And one thing which is new in the sense to EU AI Act is fundamental right impact assessment. And every high risk system should conduct FRAEA, and it's something new I've learned recently, not so long ago. I have come across the FRIA and have practiced it with my team to help our customers. So this is something which is new, but very important from EU AI Act point of view within the context of high risk AI systems. So let's cover the topic of general purpose AI and the systemic risks and code of practices that are enshrined within the EU AI Act. If you look at the general purpose AI system, they have broad usability across different sectors. You can adapt them to do the various tasks. And examples are large language model I mentioned earlier, which are ChatGPT, Gemini, and co-pilots of this world. I'm not trying to highlight them. I'm just familiar with them. That's why there are others as well. Llama and I cannot remember the other one, but there are Pi, I think is another one. And image recognition systems are example of the general purpose AI that you can actually use it for different contexts. And then you have systemic risk, obviously, associated with general purpose AI, and image creation as well. You can create images, you can create videos, and that can lead to this, systemic risks, which are mis or disinformation, bias and discrimination, and also environmental impact, because extensive use of generative AI can also cause it consume a lot of energy and cause environmental impact. But that demands transparency, documentation, risk management frameworks, human oversight, and sustainability as part of code of practice enshrined in EU AI Act. So if you want to use general purpose AI systems for non-personal use, you have to consider these elements. And since we are talking about general purpose AI and large language model, I think it's important to cover the intellectual property rights as well. And the AI Act has provision regarding issues pertaining to IP. It has transparency obligations for AI-generated content. So if you publish the AI-generated content, you should actually mention that it is generated by AI. There are requirements for data usage and licensing in AI training. So if you use the data that is intellectual property, you should better ask for permission and get the license of use. You should also disclose any copyrighted material that you may have used in databases. And there are challenges to IP rights within this context. There's AI generated content and authoring authorship debates. If you look at the UK, the way UK is heading, there's a lot of public debate about how it's going to infringe, and it has adverse impact on the intellectual property rights of the different creators. So that's kind of coming up and being discussed. And obviously, how you use the copyrighted material in data training, that will be discussed. That is big challenge from my intellectual property point of view. As I mentioned, AI is quite capable now of creating videos, and deepfakes and infringement. They also have infringement risks, because if you generate video based on other video that is already in there in the marketplace or in the public domain, then there could be infringements on the rights of individuals or intellectual property. So what are the safeguards and compliance in the EU AI Act? So EU AI Act demands that there's a clear labeling of AI-generated content. It also requires mandatory disclosure on the data source for AI training. And it also encourages enhanced transparency for IP holders to claim rights. So I think that's where the, I think UK approach and EU approach is at a bit of loggerheads at the moment. But it will be interesting to see how it pans out. So within intellectual property, we talked about use of intellectual property, but interesting concept related to this is open source and closed source models. How they what are the benefits and drawbacks of using them within the context of EU AI Act. So certainly, if you use open source models, from EU AI perspective, benefits are you will have better transparency and community collaboration, right? Open source models facilitate faster innovation and adaptability. The open source models or systems can be tailored to specific needs, and that's why improve adaptability. This can also improve the flexibility for integration into your existing systems. Another big benefit is low cost and accessibility. But with everything good, there are some drawbacks. Everything has pros and cons. So if you look at the downside, there's a high risk of misuse. There are challenges in maintaining compliance with AI Act transparency and safety standards, I would say. Harder to ensure consistent compliance across the community contributions. Difficulty in enforcing accountability, because it's being developed by community. How do you assign accountability with somebody, with something which is developed by independent people or community coming together? Then you have, if you look at the closed source model, certainly there are benefits. Greater control over safety, security, and compliance. Easier to ensure adherence to AI Act requirements, and stronger IP protection. And drawbacks are limited transparency and explainability, because how do you draw the line? How transparent you have to be. There are guidelines in EU AI Act, and I think EU AI Office, and they will also come up with the recommendations. And then you have certainly it's a slower innovation due to lack of external contribution. It's just how big is your development team. That is constrained by that. And then you have higher cost and limited access, because obviously somebody has developed it for commercial purposes. There's costs associated with it. And you will not get, for example, access to the source code, right? In some cases you may, but most likely it is to be limited access. So let's delve deeper into understanding the obligations of AI providers within the context of high-risk systems. And for when we talk about provider obligations, I think we should focus on high-risk AI system, because that's the most challenging area. And These obligations include conducting conformity assessment, also going through conformity assessment from independent third parties, maintaining documentation, and notifying regulators. So let's look at each of three dimensions. Let's start with conducting conformity assessment. The AI system should be assessed for compliance to AI Act requirements, identify risk levels, perform internal or third-party evaluation, as I said, for, in case of certainly high-risk system, you need to have independent conformity assessment and CE marking. And then you have, obviously, once you have the system, you have to maintain the documentation. It's not about just develop the system and we will take it or deal with it later. You have to prepare detailed technical documentation. And there is a requirement enshrined in the EU AI Act. There's an annex which describes what kind of documentation you have to maintain. You have to maintain the records of system design, development, testing. So it's kind of going through the whole life cycle of development. And you have to ensure traceability and transparency. And we will cover these concepts later on. And last but not least, you have to notify the regulators. The first thing is you have to get the conformity assessment, register the high-risk AI system in the EUA database, and then you have to notify market surveillance authorities of the compliance, ongoing compliance. And not only that, you have to report any serious incidents or malfunctions. So, for example, if you have an AI system that does the social scoring, or the our social scoring. Let's avoid that the concept. Let's look at any AI system that may do the credit scoring. It is a malfunction. It doesn't operate as intended and has inbuilt bias to certain segment of the society. Then you have to report that incident. Or any malfunction that may affect the rights of the individuals, you have to report that as a serious incident to market surveillance authorities or notifying authorities. And you have to continuously monitor the performance and updates during the life cycle of EU AI system in use. So now let's proceed to compliance and enforcement. I think I may have to speed up because Madhuri will otherwise may step in and say, I have a habit of going deeper into some of the slides. And Madhuri, please call me out.
Yeah, I think we're good for now. So we still have another 20-25 minutes to go, so that's fine.
All right. So let's look at the important topic of compliance and enforcement. And I mean, again, I will follow the structure of the EXIN course. So let's look at the implications of accountability and compliance and how it, how it builds the, trust and protects the user protection and safety and provide legal clarity and also facilitate the innovation. So if you look at the compliance, it is about adhering to EU AI Act legal and technical requirements. For example, conducting conformity assessments and maintaining documentation we discussed earlier, ensuring AI system meet the safety, transparency, and fairness standards, and provide continuous monitoring and reporting to the regulator. So these are the key elements from a compliance point of view. On the other hand, from accountability point of view, AI providers and deployers are responsible for the AI system's behavior whilst in use. There are obligations to ensure transparency and traceability. And there is a clear assignment of liability for harm caused by AI systems. So we will cover the penalties later on, time permitting, today or tomorrow. And then there are ethical and legal responsibility for AI decisions. And together with, if you have compliance and accountability, that certainly, or most likely, not certainly, most likely, will encourage the trust in the trust in the high risk systems that are being used. And that ensure also, as I mentioned, protection and safety of the users, and provide legal clarity, and in some sense provide innovation as well, because if you are provider or developer of AI systems, you have to make sure that whatever you innovate, whatever you come up with, is fit for the market, and that are not only concerns the functional requirements you may have in mind, but also legal and regulatory compliance requirements. So one of the key elements we touch upon in this slide, from compliance point of view, is incident reporting, and that is also enshrined in EU AI Act. And I think they are in section 1 of chapter 9. I don't remember all of the things, but this kind of stuck in my mind, which is a requirement for post-market monitoring, and it's only concerned with high-risk systems. And this slide outlines the the steps, right from incident detection to internal assessment, reporting to authorities, corrective actions, and post-incident monitoring. And if you are going to take exam, I hope you will pay attention to this slide, or remember this slide very clearly. So from it, you can only detect the incident if you have effective monitoring, and you can identify the deviations or malfunctions or errors. And then as you identify them, as you detect them, you have to do an internal assessment. What is the severity and scope of impact? What are the potential impacts? What are the risk management protocols we have in place? What do we do if something like this happens? You have to do that. You have to report to the authority if you identify that actually severity and scope demands that the authority should be notified. You should follow up with the detailed information to the authorities and continue to timely report how you're progressing with it. Then you obviously have to take the corrective actions. You have to take the risk mitigation actions, do the root cause analysis, and update the documentation to reflect what changes have been carried out. And you may have to submit that to authorities as well. And then you have to do the post-incident monitoring, in order to make sure the effectiveness of corrective actions or measures and ensure continuous compliance, and report back to authorities if required. So I think, Madhuri, we got to the stage that we have now, should have second poll, right?
Yes, we'll do a quick poll, and it'll be interesting to see how people react to it. So let me just quickly launch it. Yeah. So here's the question. Which stage of the incident response process do you think is most often overlooked or underdeveloped in organizations? I'm very curious to see what people have to say. And we're getting mixed reactions. So I'm going to give it 30 seconds because I know we're short on time and we have a lot of questions. So 30 seconds, guys. Please cast in your votes. All right, let me end this poll. We have a mixed reaction, and I'd love to know, Deepinder, what you think of this, because it's all of them, like all of them are so close to each other that, yeah, it's a little tricky to just find out one thing and stick to one
Yeah,
reason.
I mean, I think to be honest, it would be interesting to see, again, the poll, like how far everybody is in their adoption of AI systems, because I don't know whether attendees have taken this question from context of EU AI Act or general incident, detection and incident management process. So, I think it will be very challenging to say which one is difficult, because it depends upon the maturity of the organization different entities are working for. And, in my consulting experience, you get a variety of, population is so diverse, and the maturity level is so diverse. Some organization focus on one aspect and tend to neglect others, but it's a mixed bag,
Yeah.
and that's what make it so much more interesting. And that's why when I looked at the poll, I thought that would be interesting one to see what results come out.
Yeah, I was curious too,
Yeah,
but this is interesting. All
thank
right,
you.
over to you again.
Thank you. And this slide is very interesting slide, and it highlights the importance of whistleblower for the AI system. Uh, And if you look at the whistleblower, they represent individuals who report unethical or illegal practices related to AI systems. And what we're seeing and how I think EU AI Act foresee, I think there's only one mention in the EU AI Act on protection of the whistleblowers. So just mentioning and protection of whistleblower within the context of EU AI Act highlights the importance that is given to whistleblower. Uh, and obviously, as I said, whistleblower is individual who report unethical or illegal practices, but they are sometimes the one who actually observe the deviation of AI system if they are involved in human oversight of the high risk system. And key contributions of the whistleblower are, certainly they help in enhancing transparency, because whistleblower expose the hidden flaws or unethical practice in in AI development or deployment. And then you have, they help identify non-compliance with the EU AI Act, ensuring adherence to safety and ethical standards. Um, they certainly help protect public interest. They safeguard public rights by revealing harmful AI practices like biases that may be in algorithms, or there may be some privacy violations or IP-related violations that will protect public interest. And then they certainly their actions promote the culture of responsibility and integrity among the AI providers. Um, Whistleblowers can sometimes flag issues before they actually escalate, reducing the potential harm. So they may be the first to observe some deviations um, and highlight it before actually the outcomes have substantial adverse impact. And then you have regulatory support, provide critical information to regulators, enabling better oversight and enforcement. Now, we are talking whistleblowers. So if, what happens if something is reported by whistleblower to market supervisory authorities, market surveillance authorities, or national bodies, supervisory authorities, or competent authorities, as we call them. What will happen if the breaches are highlighted, and where does it land, the organizations or providers? So let's look at the corrective penalties for different types of non-compliance that are enshrined in EU AI Act. So when you say bans, I think it actually is prohibited practices. So if you violate outright prohibited practices under EU AI Act, you can be fined up to 35 million or 7% of the turnover. Yeah, and they are actually penalties listed in the slides, but they can also be found in Article 99 of the EU AI Act. And if you look at the high-risk system, if there's non-compliance with rules governing high-risk system, the organization can be fined up to 15 million euros or 3% of the turnover. And there are lesser pieces, which is like misinformation and not providing correct documentation to the supervising authorities, then can be fined up to 7.5 million or 1% turnover. And then you have not a breach but questionable use, and then you're looking at administrative fine up. Sorry, in this case you will just be give it a formal warning, and if you repeat the offense, then you can be fined as well. Okay. And just if you're planning to take the exam again, well, you need to understand, if it is a high risk non-compliance, it is lesser breach. So what kind of fines will be, could be enforced by the supervisory authorities. So one of the key aspects of EU AI Act is to understand AI user obligations. So when we talk about AI user obligations, it is basically within the context of professional commercial use. Okay. And one thing is that if you're using the system, you should be using it as the system was intended to be used. So you should follow the provider guidelines and instructions, ensure AI systems are operated within their defined purpose, avoid any unauthorized modification or misuse, and you are responsible for monitoring the system performance. Regularly assess the AI system behaviors and outputs, and if you notice any anomalies or deviations or biases, you should act upon them. You should report it to provider and work with them. Maintain human oversight, and especially for high-risk systems, it's very important. And as a user, you have obligations to report malfunctions, safety risks, and harmful impacts to providers and authorities. And the reason is providers can't do something about it because they are the developer. So you have to work with them and also to report to authorities. You have to document the incident thoroughly, include system behavior and outcomes, cooperate with providers during the investigation, and corrective actions. So that leads us to trustworthy AI. Madhuri, I just want to do a time check. How much time do we have remaining?
We still have another 25 minutes, so we could maybe save. We have a lot of questions, so I think I would recommend if how many like if we could stop here, it would be great because then we can take a look at the questions as well.
Yeah, let me check.
Or you have like you could maybe cover a couple of slides, 2 or 3, and
No,
then
let's stop here because I think otherwise it will be very difficult. So we can continue tomorrow. I will have to speed up tomorrow, but hopefully I will be able to speed up.
yeah, yeah, I also won't be eating up your time because we won't do any more long introductions to the program.
No, it was fine.
Jump
Don't
right
worry
in.
about it. Yeah, no, it was fine. I think it's me going in sometimes taking more time on some of the slides, so rather than you. So
But it's been so interesting because it's you've deep dived into the right slide, so that's enough insight and good key takeaways for everyone who's attended the session. So it's lovely.
thank you.
All right, so I think I'll just quickly jump into questions first. We have a lot of questions. Um, yeah, I think the first question is by Masheri. this person is asking, if I'm deploying automation for EU client, but my team is based outside EU, how is the scope applied here?
So automation is a different word than AI, right? So if you're using AI system to do the automation, you will have to still comply with it, and your system will be used in Europe or EU, European Union to be specific. Then you have to comply with the EU AI Act.
Great. Let's move on to the next question. This question is by Cypriano. I hope I'm getting your name right. They're asking if how do you embed ethical AI principles such as transparency, fairness, and accountability into compliance training modules for corporate stakeholders with limited ethical literacy?
That's very interesting. Soprano, it probably will take me 1 hour to, this is a very interesting topic. How do you actually
Embed.
get all yeah, I think it's a training and awareness. In the context of EU AI Act, you have to make sure you highlight um, what is expectations in these dimensions from EU AI Act. What will happen if you don't do it? Not only from fines point of view, but how it can damage the trust and reputation of the organization, which does not use the AI in transparent and ethical manner. I think that certainly is a good starting point, and then um, I think that's a very good starting point to make the stakeholders within the organization aware about the implications of not meeting these obligations.
Right. Oh, that's a good one. That's a great answer. Moving on to the next, this person, again, it's Mashari. She/he, I'm not sure. They want to know if I use a subcontractor who's based out of EU and deploy to EU client, does it need authorized rep based in EU? And where does the risk remain?
So, Mashari, one thing I would like to say is that your question is not very clear. If you're using the contractor, is contractor is going to develop the AI system for you? Uh, is it just a single resource, or you are outsourcing the development to a third party based in country outside EU? If what is the contractual arrangement between you, right? So they could be sources, AI specialist developing models for you, but you will be treated as provider because you are the one who provided the requirements to develop the system. That's how I see it. But again, it will depend upon the contractual obligations between you and the developer team, subcontractor. I think can see Maishri's response, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Maishri, that risk remain with you. It's like GDPR, right? From controller point, if I have to draw analogy, you will be still controller, right? So responsibility lies with you.
Hope this answers the question. Moving on. We have another question, which is when training multinational audiences, how do you tailor your content to reflect cultural and regulatory nuances across regions like the EU, US, and APAC?
You have to repeat the questions. It's very interesting, man, but I just want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Yeah. So they want to know if, when you're training multinational audiences, I think it's more from a trainer standpoint, how do you tailor your content to reflect cultural and regulatory nuances across regions like EU, US, and APAC?
Yeah, that's an interesting point of view. I think cultural dimension is difficult to tackle, but if you are aware, you have worked with the international markets, you know the local cultural differences, you can deal with it. So that's a kind of contextual information and experience you have, then it will come handy, right? And from regulatory landscape point of view, certainly regulatory landscape is evolving when it comes to AI. and you have to be sure that you are aware of the regulations, and where this force is heavily focused on EU AI Act, but if there are regional differences, then those has to be also incorporated. And especially, I think big providers of the AI systems will have to comply and come up with a common baseline
Mm.
based on different regulations. If you look at the example of GDPR, right, privacy
Right.
regulations, so EU GDPR set the
Yeah.
benchmark, right? And then you have to make sure that you comply with the rest of the regulations. But most likely, you will find that EU GDPR regulatory requirements were more restrictive and demanding. And if
Yeah.
you base it on GDPR, then you are most likely to comply with the rest of the regulations.
Right.
And also, there's a there are some providers who do cross mapping of different regulations that can help you in that achievement. But for training point of view, you can have to make the slide relevant to the local market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very interesting take because, yeah, like you said, GDPR set the benchmark and then other countries had to like incorporate it and adhere to it. So that's a similar direction that the EU AI Act is also taking. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another interesting one. What would be the risk classification for a cyber security AI product that monitors network using unsupervised learning and takes decision anonymously or with human oversight? Like, does this fall under high risk system? That's what they want to know.
Sorry, who is can you name the person who asked this question?
It's Shanita Sojan.
So Shanita, you may have to reach out to me and engage me as a consultant, then I can help you. No, but I will suggest, that was a joke, but reality, I can help you. But I would suggest that refer to Annex, uh, especially which help you classify the high risk systems. Use that criteria defined in the EUAI Act. That would be your best guideline, to be honest. Because um, cybersecurity solution may unlikely to uh, be fall under probative practices. So start with high risk system, look at the classification criteria, and then you can downgrade the classification if you think the AI, high risk AI system classification doesn't apply to your solution.
Yeah, that's a good one. The next question is, which of the roles defined under the AI Act, like we had multiple roles defined, right? The provider, deployer. So, which of these roles do you think carries the most risk or responsibility and why?
Yeah, great question. Um, Without a doubt, the provider carries the greatest share of responsibility under the EUA Act. Why? Because provider is the one who develops the system, determines the intended use, and performs the critical risk classification. And they are also responsible for conformity assessment, ensuring technical documentation exists and is complete, and also for keeping the system compliant over its life cycle. And if something goes wrong, as we saw going through the course material so far, um, if whistleblower highlights risks, uh, bias issue, or if there's a safety failure in the EU AI system, or there's a regulatory breach, other breach, again, the burden falls on the shoulder of provider. But say that deployers are and users are not off the hook. We saw that they also have, requirements that they have to comply with. But by far, the provider is uh, it bears the greatest responsibility. Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Adri.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, no, I was just saying, yeah, all the heavy lifting, most of the heavy lifting has to be done by providers. So yeah, they're usually under the radar. We do have a lot of questions. I'm trying to see how can I, yeah. I think another question that we also have is how should organizations strike a balance between innovation and compliance especially in fast-moving areas like Gen AI?
Yeah, so Gen AI is very interesting, right? I think this is where the real art of having a responsible AI governance comes into play. In a fast-moving spaces, or like generative AI, the key is proactive compliance, not reactive firefighting. I can certainly cite example of Verizon where I work. It's not confidential. We were one of the very first first company to adopt a responsible AI framework. Our endeavor to implement a responsible AI framework started in 2022. As soon as we became aware of that EU is going to introduce the AI Act, we were first off the mark. But going back to your question, I think, as I mentioned, if you have a responsible AI framework that will help you certainly navigate the challenges with the compliance while facilitating the innovation at the same time. Another thing I would like to say is that if you're SMEs, so you certainly will have to, within the context of EU AI Act, you have to have some kind of governance framework, but lightweight. But you should have a risk-based approach, some kind of risk management framework in place, and don't hesitate to embrace the regulatory sandboxes that each member state will offer. That's a great facilitator for you, great facility available to most of the SMEs and startups in EU. That that encourages innovation under supervision. I really admire that. And last but not least, embed the compliance into any internal development activity, how you plan to use generative AI, either internally within an organization, or as a provider of Gen AI system
Yeah.
application, right?
No, absolutely. I fully agree with you. I think it needs to be inbuilt from the ground up, and the sooner SMEs or smaller companies start with it, the better it is for them in the long run. And there are so many platforms available for them to uh, build things in a more compliant and secure uh, method. So yeah, I think everyone should they should start thinking in that direction, so it's not much of a bottleneck later on. Yeah. Is there any question that's particularly standing out for you, and you would want to take a stab at?
I'm just going through question. Um,
There's a question about AI compliance and penalties
yeah,
from Ashari again. Uh, what's the coverage of AI compliance and penalties from business size perspective? Like if a business is less than 1 million, less than 10 million annual recurring revenue. Is
yeah,
it?
that's basically whichever is higher, but it depends upon supervisory authority that will enforce the fines, right? Uh, it's up to them. But there are guidelines in the EU AI Act. But certainly, it's an interesting question because when GDPR came around, I remember in a webinar I gave in 2017, somebody asked, how the fines will be applied, and I said, look, no enforcement body will like any system to go out of business, and at the same time, they have to make sure um, that the companies don't reoffend because the fines are too low, or it um, takes the rigor out of enforcement. So again, supervisory authority have to balance it out as well. I
Yeah.
hope that answers the question.
Yeah. No, fair point. Somebody also wants to know, where does EU GDPR meets or aligns with the EU AI Act? Is there any?
Yeah, certainly the privacy is a right that is enshrined in EU, right? So fundamental rights, right to privacy, and that has to, that goes hand in hand. So we will cover it in tomorrow's session, actually, in detail, key elements that of GDPR or privacy regulations that align with the EU AI Act
Yeah, so there's a
expectations.
lot to cover tomorrow.
Yeah, a lot to cover tomorrow. So I have to make
A
sure
lot more interesting.
I'm brief.
That's amazing. I think we'll take one last question before we wrap up. Another question that we have is, what does development cover if we use N8N to develop agentic AI workflows? Does it mean we are responsible for it, or does it mean N8N as a company is responsible for it?
So what does development cover? If we use the non, I cannot read the question. If we use
Any
to develop agentic AI workflows, does it mean we are responsible for it? You will certainly be responsible for assessing the risk.
N8N is a software company. I think what they're trying to imply is if
Yeah,
they
yeah. I mean, so see, whatever AI system you develop, whether based on agentic AI that is developed by somebody else, as a user, you have a responsibility, right?
yeah.
As a deployer, that's what user is. You have a responsibility. So you have to assess the risk. What is the context of use of that agentic AI? What will be the impact, of the output of the agentic AI? If it affects the fundamental rights in any shape or form, it will certainly classify into high risk AI systems. And then you have to meet all the requirements that are related to high risk AI systems. I can see my friend Dolph has a question here. He used to work with me.
Really?
It's good to have Dolph. Good to have you here. I think it's related to training material or something like that. Right?
Yes, I was just responding to Dolph. So yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I was just typing my message in. So Dolph, you
So
hear from me.
that's okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So the book is going to be released on June 13th, and so will the certification. So the certification is set to go live on June 13th.
So let me ask him, my Shri, I think you should engage me as a consultant, right? Or Verizon as a consultant.
The
But
Shirley has a lot of questions.
yeah, so the question is, if provider is not based in the EU and they use authorized representative, where the risk lies? Again, it lies with the provider. Authorized representative is just there as a nominated person on your behalf. So think of his authorized representative as liaison between provider and local EU authority.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I think we'll take one last question, which is, as a trainer and as an expert, I'd like to ask you, and this is asked by Thomas, how does this course relate to the ISO 42001
Right.
requirement?
So we will cover that tomorrow. But I can tell you that there are other standards that you can use to cover the different aspects of EUAI Act. For example, I think, to be honest, ISO 42001 is a very good standard. And there's a slide which says how well they are aligned. Very good standard to start with. And I will not be surprised if uh, notifying, I'm talking about those conformity assessment bodies or notified bodies, they actually conduct the assessment to to compliance with EU AI based on ISO 42001. So if you have 42001, that's a very good start, because within the context of the organization, you have to, when you start setting up the AIMS, you'll have to look at the context of the organization. You have to consider all the regulatory legal obligations that you have complied with. And also contractual obligations you may have to comply with the users of the AI systems that you may be developing. So that will help you actually um, set up AI management system right from the inception that will help you achieve compliance with EU AI Act or any other regulations that you may have to comply with, from AI system perspective.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
as I said, there are other standards that can help you as well in certain aspects um, of there is a standard for data quality that can help you meet the data quality requirements. So we will cover that tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Tomorrow's session is going to be super
Very
jam.
intense. I have to be very quick, and you have to be my timekeeper. You have to
Yes,
say,
I will.
speed up, speed up.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Deepinder. This was such an incredibly insightful session today. I think your expertise, your practical examples, and all your answers really brought so much life to the AI compliance content that we have. And I'm sure everyone here has taken away a lot of value. So, big thank you to you, and a big thank you to everyone who attended. Thank you for your time, attention, and great engagement throughout today's session. This was just part one of our Train the Trainer series. We'll be continuing with part two tomorrow, where we'll dive deeper into the rest of the content. So, yeah, we look forward to seeing you all back here tomorrow. And until then, take care and thank you again for joining.
Thank you
See
very
you.
much, Madhuri. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. Bye bye. And thank
You.
you all for attending. Thank you.